Deep in the heart of northern Vermont, nestled between towering pine trees and jagged cliffs, lay an untouched stretch of land known as Black Hollow. No maps marked its existence, no trails led there. Locals whispered of the place in hushed tones, referring to it as cursed land, and those who ventured near always returned different. It wasn't the kind of curse people like to joke about in bars. No, this was something darker. Those who survived the forest spoke of hearing their names whispered by unseen voices, of shadows that didn't belong to anything living, and of an oppressive feeling that something ancient and unspeakable was watching. Rachel Hayes had heard the stories her entire life. As a journalist for a fading magazine that prided itself on uncovering true mysteries, she thought herself too rational to believe in campfire tales. So when her editor handed her the assignment to write a feature on the legends of Black Hollow, Rachel jumped at the chance. "It's been 30 years since the last recorded expedition," her editor had told her, sliding a faded newspaper clipping across the desk. The headline read, "Search for missing campers called off as Black Hollow claims more victims." 30 years? Rachel had asked, trying to suppress a shiver. Yep, that's the last anyone heard of them. No bodies, no gear, nothing. But they're not the only ones who've disappeared there. Locals say the forest keeps them. The idea was simple. Spend a weekend at Black Hollow, debunk the myths, and come back with a compelling story. For Rachel, this was more than just another assignment. It was a way to prove herself to a readership that was increasingly uninterested in print journalism. The day she left, the weather turned sour. The sky was an unbroken sheet of gray, and a chilling wind whispered through the trees as she drove along the lonely road leading to the forest's edge. She parked her car at the old logging trail, where she found the remnants of a rusted sign that simply read, "Turn back." Rachel smirked. Subtle. She gathered her gear, a camera, notebook, flashlight, GPS, and enough food and water for 2 days. As she crossed the threshold into Black Hollow, the air seemed to change. It grew heavier, colder. The world outside the forest felt a lifetime away. Rachel's boots crunched against the brittle layer of leaves and twigs that carpeted the ground. The towering pines loomed overhead, their branches twisting together to blot out most of the sunlight. What light did manage to seep through felt pale and distant, as though the forest had swallowed the day itself. She walked for hours, marking trees with biodegradable tape to ensure she could find her way back. The deeper she ventured, the more unsettling her surroundings became. The forest was too quiet. Not a single bird sang, no wind rustled the trees, and even her footsteps felt muffled. By late afternoon, Rachel stumbled upon something that made her stomach tighten. It was a campsite, or what was left of one. The fire pit was cold and filled with ash, but the arrangement of rocks around it looked deliberate. A weathered tent sagged into the dirt, its poles snapped like brittle twigs. Beside it lay a backpack, its contents scattered haphazardly. A notebook sat on top of a pile of damp clothes. Rachel's pulse quickened as she picked it up and flipped through the pages. Most of the entries were mundane, notes about the weather, wildlife sightings, and navigation. But the handwriting changed about halfway through, becoming erratic and barely legible. Something is watching us. We hear it at night. We can't find where the sounds are coming from. It knows our names. The entries stopped abruptly. No goodbyes, no explanations. Rachel felt a chill crawl up her spine. She tried to rationalize it. Maybe someone had just gotten scared and left in a hurry. But the sight of claw-like marks gouged into the nearby trees told a different story. As the sun dipped lower, Rachel decided to set up her own camp a short distance away. She told herself it was safe, that the stories were just exaggerated tales to scare off outsiders. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. By the time darkness fell, the silence had become unbearable. Rachel sat by her small fire, clutching her flashlight like a lifeline. The forest pressed in on her from all sides, its shadows shifting in unnatural ways. Then she heard it, a faint whisper. At first, she thought it was the wind, but it came again, clearer this time. Rachel. Her blood ran cold. She whipped around, shining her flashlight into the dense trees. Nothing. She told herself she was imagining things, but the whispers continued, each one closer than the last. Rachel, why did you come? Panic set in. She grabbed her camera and blindly snapped photos of the darkness, hoping to capture whatever was out there. When she reviewed the images on her small screen, her breath hitched.